The silent exit, the great chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with golden lights, filled with hundreds of alien delegates. Each race carried their colors, banners, and pride. Their voices echoed across the chamber, sharp with arrogance. They had called this meeting to settle what they believed was the last human problem. At the far end of the hall, the human delegation sat still. 5 figures in dark uniforms, no banners, no display of power. They listened as alien leaders, spoke of Earth as weak, as divided, as unworthy of the Council's respect. The insults were sharp, each word meant to cut. "They cling to old values," one reptilian counselor hissed. "Humanity still believes in honor and loyalty." Laughter spread through the chamber like a disease. The sound rolled across the marble floor, bouncing from wall to wall. The eldest of the human ambassadors, gray at the temples, leaned forward. His face showed no anger, no reaction, only calm silence. He stood slowly, adjusting the black coat that marked his rank. The other 4 humans rose with him. Their eyes met briefly, a silent agreement passing between them. The chamber grew quieter. Curious eyes followed the humans as they walked toward the great exit doors. No one spoke at first. Then, one alien delegate sneered, "Are you leaving, humans? Do you walk away because you cannot defend yourselves?" More laughter followed, cruel and mocking, but the humans did not answer. Their boots clicked on the polished floor step after step. The sound echoed louder than the jeers. It was the sound of resolve, the sound of patience stretched thin. One young alien advisor leaned to his superior and whispered, "Silence is dangerous, sir. Silence means they have chosen something beyond words." The superior brushed him off with a wave. "They are finished. They will never return." The heavy doors of the chamber loomed ahead. The humans reached them. The eldest paused, his hand resting on the polished surface. For a moment, it seemed he might speak, that he might turn and answer the council's cruelty. But he did not. He pressed the door open, and the 5 walked through, their faces calm and unreadable. The door closed behind them with a deep, ringing sound. The council chamber erupted with laughter again, but under it there was unease. The silence the humans left behind felt heavier than the council wanted to admit. One delegate, a tall insectoid being with gleaming wings, whispered, "I do not." Like this, their silence is not defeat, it is promise. But the others ignored him, their arrogance louder than their caution. Far beyond the chamber, in the shadowed corridors of the council station, the humans walked side by side. No words were spoken. They did not need them. Every step was already part of the plan. They had warned the council many times before the words had been wasted. Now silence would speak for them. As they reached their waiting shuttle, the youngest of the 5 finally broke the silence. His voice was low, filled with steel. "They think silence means weakness," he said, "but silence means we no longer waste our breath." The eldest looked at him and nodded slowly. "Let the galaxy laugh. The echo of their mistake will come soon." The shuttle doors closed, engines hummed, the human delegation lifted off, leaving the great council halls behind. No cheering crowds, no banners, only silence, but silence was enough. Back in the chamber, the laughter slowly faded. A strange stillness spread among the delegates. Many could not shake the image of humans walking away without a single word. Some thought it weakness, some thought it madness. But deep inside, even the proudest among them felt a cold edge of fear, because silence can carry more weight than any speech. Silence can be the shadow before the storm. Silence can be the promise of something far worse than words. The council had mocked humanity as they walked away, but their mistake had already been made, and the echo of that mistake had already begun. The forgotten warning. In the archives of the Galactic Council, there was a recording almost no one cared to watch anymore. It was a warning, spoken years ago, by a human envoy. His voice had been calm, his eyes steady. The message was short. "Cross the line and you will face the silence of humanity." Back then, the council laughed. They believed silence was a bluff. They thought humans were fragile, creatures of emotion, easy to manipulate. What danger could come from silence? They had forgotten that silence is where storms are born. Now, as the human delegation's shuttle left the council station, That old message resurfaced in whispers. A junior historian pulled the file from the archives. He stared at the words, his skin cold. His supervisor shook her head. "Do not waste time with human riddles," she said. "They are finished." But the historian could not forget the tone of that voice. Meanwhile, far from the council's shining chambers, the truth unfolded. Humanity had not abandoned the stars. They had only erased themselves from the maps. Entire fleets slipped quietly from known space. Shipyards were emptied in silence. Colonies went dark without explanation. At first, aliens thought humans were retreating. But retreat was not the right word. It was repositioning. In the far edges of the Orion Arm, alien traders whispered strange stories. Merchant ships vanished without distress calls. Entire routes went silent. One crew that survived claimed they saw shadows in the void, human ships larger than before, their hulls black, their engines silent, moving like ghosts. No one believed them. They called it fear, hallucination. But fear has a way of spreading faster than truth. Inside human command, hidden beyond nebulae, and dead stars, leaders watched in silence. They remembered the laughter of the council. They remembered the insult. The quiet halls of their war rooms echoed only with the hum of machinery, not with speeches. Plans were drawn without announcement. Orders carried without argument. Silence ruled every moment. On a council frontier world, a strange incident began. An agricultural colony waited for its shipment of supplies from Earth. Days passed, then weeks. No ships came. No messages arrived. The council dismissed their requests for help. "The humans have abandoned you," they said. But then, one night, the skies above the colony shifted. The stars themselves seemed to vanish. A massive shadow blocked out the light. Farmers and settlers ran into the fields, staring upward. Some swore they saw the outline of a colossal ship, far larger than anything the council had ever built. It hung in silence. No lights, no signals. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it faded back into the dark. The colony reported the event, but the council called it panic. Only a few alien leaders remembered the warning. "The silence of humanity," they repeated in hushed voices. Could this be it? But the majority mocked them again, too proud to admit fear. Back in the shadows of deep space, a human commander stood on the bridge of one of those dark ships. His face was lit only by the glow of tactical screens. He watched the reports come, in alien ships moving, colonies waiting, fleets preparing. He did not smile. He only whispered to himself, "They think silence means surrender. They will soon remember silence means judgment." At that same moment, the historian in the council chamber tried one last time. He replayed the old recording for anyone who would listen. The envoy's words filled the room again. "Cross the line and you will face the silence of humanity." Some delegates rolled their eyes, some laughed, but one older alien covered her face with her hands. "We should have listened," she whispered. The silence was no longer empty. It was filled with shadows, with movement, with things unseen. The galaxy thought humanity had left quietly. But in truth, the countdown had already started, and the council's forgotten mistake was beginning to echo louder and louder. The first regret on the edge of the galaxy, where trade lanes cut through lonely space, the first cracks began to show. Small colonies that once depended on human merchants started to send distress signals. Their storage bays were empty, their fuel reserves low. Their voices trembled as they asked the council for aid, but the council chambers echoed only with dismissal. "Humans have abandoned their roots," one councillor declared. "Let the colonies adapt." Another laughed. "Perhaps the humans are sulking in their silence." They waved away the messages as if they were dust on the floor. Yet within weeks, trade across 3 sectors collapsed. Ships vanished between stars, convoys never arrived. At first, the council claimed it was pirates. But pirates do not erase entire fleets. Pirates do not leave nothing behind but cold silence. One desperate colony leader sent a final message. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "We saw them," she whispered. "Not pirates, not raiders, human ships, black as the void, silent as death. They moved without sound, without warning, and then everything was gone." The message ended in static. The council technicians replayed it again and again. Some dismissed it as madness, but one technician swore he saw the reflection of a colossal warship in the background. He tried to speak up, but his superior silenced him. "Do not spread fear," the man said. "It will weaken the council." Meanwhile, in the deep lanes of forgotten space, alien freighters told stories no one wanted to believe. One crew staggered into port, half-starved, their ship torn and broken. They claimed a shadow swallowed them, a human vessel the size of a city. No sound, no signal, only a blinding light that erased 2 escort ships in seconds. The council ridiculed them. Hallucinations, they said. Trauma. But the whispers spread like fire in dry grass, and whispers have more power than speeches. Back on Earth, the silence was not chaos. It was discipline. Shipyards worked around the clock, new vessels sliding into black space without ceremony. No speeches, no flags, only shadows stretching farther. With each launch, humanity had left the council halls in silence, but their footsteps now shook the galaxy. Inside the council, unease grew. Delegates argued. Some wanted to confront the humans. Others wanted to ignore them. "If we give them no attention, they will fade," said one. But another leaned forward, her voice shaking. "Do you not see? They have already faded, that is the danger." For the first time, regret slipped into the chamber. The council remembered their laughter as humans walked out. The memory no longer felt amusing. It felt like the beginning of something vast. Something planned. One small race. Traders who once relied on human ships begged the council for protection. "We cannot survive without their roots," they pleaded. But no protection came. Their world fell into silence, their skies swallowed by shadows. By the time investigators arrived, nothing remained but empty cities and silent seas. The council tried to cover it up, but fear does not hide easily. Rumors crawled across every star system. "The humans are not gone," people whispered. "The humans are hunting in silence." On a quiet night in the council's core world, an old alien diplomat sat alone. He remembered the warning. He remembered the stillness in the human ambassadors' eyes. He whispered to himself, "We laughed when they left, but silence is not surrender. It is judgment." And far away beyond the rim, a human commander received a report. Alien fleets moving, colonies crying, whispers spreading. He gave no speech. He only raised his hand, and his fleet moved. The first regret of the council had arrived, but it was only the beginning. The hidden arsenal. The council chamber trembled with noise. Voices clashed, accusations flew. Some shouted that humans were retreating. Others warned that humans were preparing. No one agreed, and in their pride, they argued while the shadows of Earth moved unseen. Deep in the black folds of space, far beyond the council's eyes, humanity's true work was revealed. Shipyards, the size of continents, floated in silence, cloaked within dead nebulae. There, machines labored without pause, forging steel and plasma into weapons the galaxy had never imagined. The humans did not announce these creations. They did not display them in parades or boast about their numbers. Instead, each ship left the docks without a word, slipping into the void like a predator stalking prey. Engineers whispered to one another about the new designs. Colossal warships with armor that drank energy like water, cannons that could split a moon, and engines that ran so quiet even scanners failed to detect them. These were not fleets made for defense. These were fleets, built for silence, for judgment. Meanwhile, the council mocked what little news escaped. They hide because they are weak. One delegate said, "A lion roars, but a rat scurries into shadow." But others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They knew lions could also stalk in silence, waiting for the perfect strike. Rumors grew among smugglers who dared to cross human space. They spoke of black silhouettes larger than mountains, ships that drifted in absolute silence, unmoving until a single wrong step was taken. Then the stars themselves seemed to vanish as beams of light cut across the dark. No survivors ever brought proof, only fear in their eyes and shaking voices. The council dismissed these stories, but cracks were forming. A few smaller races began withdrawing their support, refusing to send fleets or taxes. "We do not wish to anger the humans," they said. The council threatened them. But fear was stronger than threats. Inside one of Earth's hidden command bunkers, an admiral stood before a wall of holograms. Each light represented a ship ready, each shadow a fleet waiting in silence. "The council believes we have retreated," he said to his officers. "Let them believe it. Their arrogance blinds them, and arrogance is the first step to destruction." In the council, a secret document leaked. It described something whispered among spies: the final fleet. The report claimed humanity had created a weaponized armada beyond anything the galaxy could resist. The council tried to bury the report, but once fear spreads, it cannot be silenced. Panic began to ripple. Delegates argued not about whether the humans had weapons, but how many. Some demanded to strike first, to hunt humanity before they grew stronger. Others warned that to strike blindly at shadows was suicide. The chamber became a storm of voices, and in that storm, truth was lost. But, far from their noise, the humans continued their work. The silence of Earth was not empty. It was full of fire waiting to burn, full of blades waiting to cut. Humanity had not abandoned war. They had perfected it in silence. One young officer aboard a black warship looked out into the void and whispered, "They think we are silent because we are weak. They do not know. Silence is the wait before thunder." His words were carried away by the endless dark, but soon the entire galaxy would hear that thunder. And in the council halls, the laughter that once rang so loud began to fade, replaced by whispers. Whispers of hidden arsenals, whispers of fleets unseen, whispers of humanity's silence growing heavier with every passing day. The shattered illusion. The council chamber was restless. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices sharp with fear. For years they had mocked the silence of humanity, but now that silence pressed on their minds like a weight, heavier with every day that passed. An emergency meeting was called. They demanded that humanity explain itself. They demanded Earth return to the chamber and show loyalty to the council. But when the great summons was broadcast across the stars, no human voice answered. No human envoy arrived. The seats of Earth remained empty, cold, and waiting. The illusion of control began to crack. The council had ruled the galaxy with arrogance for centuries, yet they now realized they had no grasp over the humans. In the past, humans were noisy, passionate, always arguing, always warning. Now they had vanished into silence. And that silence was unbearable. Then the reports arrived. A frontier world, a strong, prosperous colony under council protection, had been destroyed in a single night. Entire fleets stationed there had gone dark, cities reduced to ash, scanners picked up nothing but silence. When investigators arrived weeks later, all they found were empty ruins and shadows burned into stone. Panic erupted. Some shouted that it must have been pirates. Others whispered the truth. "It was them," one trembling voice said. "The humans did this." The room fell quiet, not because they agreed, but because deep inside, every delegate knew it was true. For the first time, the council feared silence more than war. War was loud, full of speeches, declarations, demands, but silence gave no warning, no chance to prepare. Silence came like a shadow, striking before anyone even knew to scream. On one shattered world, a lone survivor was pulled from the rubble. His skin burned, his eyes wide with terror. His words were broken, trembling. They didn't speak, they didn't demand. They only watched from the sky. Black ships and then light. So much light. He died before finishing his tale. The council tried to hide the story, but rumors slipped free. They always do. Traitors carried whispers. Soldiers carried fear, and soon every corner of the galaxy repeated the same phrase. The silence of humanity is death. In the council's grand chamber, the delegates begged for a plan. Some wanted to send peace envoys, others wanted to raise war fleets, but no plan could hold because no one could find where humanity had gone. Their homeworld was guarded, their colonies hidden, their fleets invisible. One alien leader, older than most, stood and spoke above the noise. Her voice shook with truth. We laughed when they left. We thought silence was surrender, but it was warning. We shattered the illusion with our arrogance, and now their silence will shatter us. At that same moment, far from their chamber, a human warship drifted in orbit above another frontier colony. No signal, no warning, no light. Just a shadow across the stars. On the bridge, a commander gave no speech. He simply raised his hand and the colony below vanished in a storm of fire. The Council's illusion of safety was broken forever. The humans had spoken once with words. The galaxy had not listened. Now they spoke with silence, and silence was louder than any war cry. The price of arrogance. The Council chamber had never been so quiet. The same delegates who once laughed at humanity now sat pale and trembling. Their voices were gone, replaced by fear that clung to the walls like smoke. Across the galaxy, worlds burned in silence. Not every planet was destroyed. Not every fleet was attacked. Humanity was not striking at random. They were choosing carefully, sending a message. Each strike was sharp, precise, undeniable. It was not war. It was punishment. The Council tried to act. They sent fleets to guard their borders. They dispatched envoys carrying desperate pleas for peace, but every fleet vanished. Every envoy disappeared. Their signals cut mid-sentence, replaced. Only by static. Humanity answered no words. Humanity gave no reply. Why will they not negotiate? One delegate cried. His voice cracked as he slammed his hand on the table. Even conquerors speak, even tyrants demand. But an older voice answered coldly, because they are not tyrants, they are judges, and judgment does not debate. Distant worlds' panic spread faster than fire. Citizens looked to the skies in terror, waiting for black shadows to appear. Entire populations fled their cities, hiding in caves and tunnels, praying the silence would pass over them. The galaxy had never feared so deeply, not even in its darkest wars. Inside a hidden human command center, the silence was alive with motion. Tactical screens glowed. Fleets shifted across maps. Commanders spoke in whispers, not speeches. Orders were carried without argument. Humanity had become a storm without sound. A young officer asked her commander, "They beg for peace. Why do we not answer?" The commander's eyes stayed on the display, his voice steady. Because they never listened to words, only silence will teach them now. Back in the Council, desperation turned to chaos. Some delegates demanded unconditional surrender to humanity, others screamed for one last attempt at war. Alliances shattered, factions broke apart. Old enemies accused one another of betrayal. The chamber that once stood united now tore itself apart. In the midst of the shouting, one voice rose. It was the same insectoid delegate who had warned them when humanity first walked out. His wings trembled as he spoke. We laughed at them. We called silence weakness. That arrogance was our mistake. This is the price, and it is only beginning. Reports arrived again. Another sector lost. Fleets erased. Stations burned. The galaxy felt smaller with every passing day. The Council sent one final envoy, a leader respected across the stars. His words carried across the void. "We surrender," he said. "We lay down arms. We beg humanity to forgive." But there was no answer, no signal, no voice, only silence. Silence heavier than death. Silence sharper than fire. The Council realized. Then that arrogance had a cost and humanity had come to collect it. The echo of silence. The Council halls stood empty. The great chamber that once shook with laughter and pride now echoed only with silence. Banners that had once flown proudly now hung limp. Dust gathered where delegates once sat. The center of galactic power had become nothing more than a hollow shell. One by one, the member races abandoned the chamber. Some fled into deep space, hoping distance would protect them. Others hid behind locked worlds, sealing their skies. Yet no one felt safe because silence is not something that can be outrun. Silence follows. Silence waits. Across the stars, survivors whispered the same words. "The humans do not speak," they said. "They only watch." And in every corner of the galaxy, the fear of silence grew heavier. The sound of a quiet sky became more terrifying than thunder. On a burned frontier world, a group of alien children played among ruins. They asked their teacher, "Why did the humans leave?" The old teacher closed her eyes, her voice trembling. "Because we mocked them when they warned us. Because we believed their silence meant surrender. But silence was their answer, and silence is forever." Far away, in the deep black, the human fleets drifted. Their ships were giants of shadow. Their engines hummed quietly, their cannons silent. They did not need to roar. They did not need to declare victory. Their silence was victory itself. Inside the flagship, a human commander stood by the wide glass of the bridge. He looked at the stars and spoke softly. They thought silence was weakness. They thought words were power. But we warned them. Silence is the echo of their mistake. His officers said nothing. They did not need to. The silence between them carried more than speeches ever could. It carried unity. It carried judgment. It carried the weight of every insult, every laugh, every arrogance the galaxy had once thrown at humanity. Back on the Council's homeworld, the grand towers stood like tombstones. No voices rang inside. No lights shone from the windows. The Council had fallen not with fire, not with war, but with silence. Humanity had not returned to sit in their seats. Humanity had erased the very need for them. The galaxy would remember, not through stories of great battles or speeches, but through the absence of them. For generations, children would ask, "What happened to the Council?" And their elders would answer, "They mocked humanity," and humanity answered with silence, and that silence echoed. It echoed through the stars, through the hearts of every race, a silence heavier than war, a silence sharper than vengeance, a silence eternal.